Hey guys, Sean Hurwitz here. Thanks so much for joining us this morning on Instagram livestream. If you missed it, this video is for you. I chat with Jason Grishkoff from submithub.com about all your questions, about Spotify, about TikTok, and if you pay close attention, he even gives away some free premium credits to use on his site. Also, if you haven't seen it, here's my review of submithub.com. And now, the video. Jason, what's up? How you doing, mate?
I'm alright, and you?
Doing good, man.
Cool, it's been a long day. 7 p.m. over here.
Do anything interesting today?
Same thing I've done for the last 19 days, which is surviving a lockdown. So playing with the kids, cleaning up after the kids, feeding the kids, and desperately trying to do some work. Yeah. Do you know, this is such a productive time for people who don't have kids, I imagine. And
right here.
For anyone who does have kids, this is like a really difficult time because normally you either drop them off at school or you have some help. So anyway, it's a life experience. Let's put it that way. It's a life experience.
Okay, so real quick, just to introduce people that don't know me, my name is Sean Hurwitz, guitarist for Smash Mouth, Enrique Iglesias, many others. As you see, I'm in my studio, do a lot of stuff here, and one of the things that I did recently is I discovered, through a friend of mine, submithub.com and posted a review about it a few days ago because I was so amazed by what an amazing tool it is in so many different ways for artists. And so I reached out a few weeks ago to Mr. Jason Grishkoff, right here with me, the founder of submithub.com and Indie Shuffle, after his Google career. Did a little research on you. And and I asked him if he'd be, because so many people asked me questions about it, I figured what a great opportunity. Maybe we could go live with this and have you guys ask all kinds of questions that you might want to know. So I do have a list of questions to start with, but before that, and of course they can ask live, but before that, would you care to tell us a little about yourself?
Oh, I thought you just covered everything.
Did I?
No. I'm just trying to adjust my little phone pedestal.
Yeah, go for it.
Well, I mean, are you doing this? Have you got a phone holder right by your computer?
Say again. I've got a computer here. I've got a computer there, but this is on my phone, just like yours.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. I've fashioned a little stand here, but I can't show anyone what it looks like because then anyway. Me. I was born in South Africa, but I did my schooling in California mostly. So I moved out there when I was 12. Went to school in Orange County, San Diego, worked a bit in DC, and then I got kind of the job of a lifetime out in San Francisco working for Google. And I think one of the reasons they actually hired me was because I had a music blog on the side, which I had started in 2008. And when you're working for Google or interviewing for Google, they're looking for this thing called like googliness, which is just, who knows what it means. But my interpretation of it is that they think you're doing something cool besides your job. And my job was not cool. I was figuring out how much their executives would get paid. So I was sort of in finance and HR. But then I had a music blog, so they're like, okay, that's cool. We want this guy here. So I worked for Google for 3 years, and then I left in 2013 because that was kind of the peak of music blogging. And I signed this really cool deal with Spin Magazine, who I don't think are around anymore. They were like at the same level as Rolling Stone and Enemy, and they were huge. And they basically went around and inked deals with all of the big music blogs, Gorilla versus Bear, Hype Machine they had a big deal with, etc. And they offered us so much money. Like I got offered $180,000 per year.
To do what?
To just run my music blog, and then they would be in control of all the ads. So I thought, wow, this is awesome. I'm going to quit Google and I'm just going to go travel the world. And so I did. And after a year, I was like, hey, Spin, where's the check, man? You guys are supposed to be paying me.
Really?
Yeah, I was like, you owe me 180 grand, and they're like, oh shit, yeah, we're working on it. Here's 5K, and then a week later they're like, actually, we need the 5K back. We've gone bankrupt. Um,
No.
yeah, and
Oh
so
my
like the
God.
whole, I quit Google because I thought I had this really cool parachute, and I didn't. So and then of course 2013, 2014, 2015. Just online publications in general, not just music blogs, but like all blogs, started to see a real big decline in visitors and money from ads. And this was because well, in the music industry, it's because Spotify was taking over. And, for other industries, it was because everyone was sharing on Facebook instead, right? But people just in general stopped looking at music blogs as much. And they stopped looking at any sort of blog, tech blogs, music blogs, knitting blogs, whatever. And so I sort of had this oh shit moment of either I'm going to have to go groveling back to Google, which is not a bad thing, right? I mean, if they'd been willing to have me, that would have been awesome. But that was about 2015. I decided I got to do something else. And so I looked at the sort of indie shuffle, my blog, what the biggest problem was. And it was that we were getting 300 email pitches per day from artists who were trying to get their music heard, right? And it was overwhelming to the point that I think most music blogs were just straight up ignoring it. Like I didn't look. I had a submissions at indieshuffle.com was the email address. We didn't open it. It just stayed closed. There was too much in it. And the downside was we actually ended up missing a lot of new music from artists, and we just became this echo chamber where all the music blogs were regurgitating the same acts over and over. Which in hindsight had some great benefits for those acts. But if you were an indie artist, your chance of having anyone listen to your music was pretty small unless you hired a publicist. So that was kind of the bed that Submit Hub was built on. So it was built to solve the problem of all these emails I was getting, and to allow, it was built very selfishly, right? I wanted to solve these emails and be able to listen to the music again and find stuff that I could blog, because for a blog, being the first one to find a band is like the cred, right? And I think sometimes people have a different take on what blogs are looking for. I often see people complain that they're kind of just looking for commercial songs that fit, but I would say that most of the real, true, old school bloggers get their kicks from being the first one to discover a band that no one has followed. So that's some foundation. I'm back in South Africa now. I got a family. I like it here. It's cool. Yeah.
Well, actually, I have a question regarding what you said. You said that bloggers in general, what they want is to break the artist. They want to find that artist before they're big. Do you find I wrote it down. You have so Submit Hub currently has 1,175 curators worldwide in the form of bloggers, Spotify playlists, YouTube promo channels, Instagram influence, etc., etc., etc. Do you find that over those almost 1,200 curators, do you find that most of them have that same mentality?
No, I wouldn't say so. Bloggers are a totally different beast from playlisters, and they're a different beast to YouTube channel hosts. What would you call them? I don't know. YouTube channels. All of these guys sort of have different backgrounds. YouTube promo channels. So maybe YouTube promo channels and blogs do often have a lot in common, because I think YouTube promo channels, they can't upload very often. They're going to upload once a day tops, usually only 3 times a week. And when they do, they're trying to upload like the best of the best that they're positive their audience is going to love, right? And so from a YouTube channel, I think they're often looking for a broader appeal, something that the majority of their audience can get into. And I think for blogs, they give less of a shit, man. They're like those, I'll draw a comparison to the guys who used to go digging in vinyl stores, right? They're just there all day listening, trying to find a little quick sample. They're just skimming through these records, but they get their kicks from finding something that no one else has really noticed before. And I think blogs are pretty unique in that sense. And I won't say it's all blogs, right? But a lot of the ones, especially the ones who are listed on Hype Machine or are older, like a blog that's 5 or 10 years old, those guys at this point rarely care whether there's mass appeal to their songs. They're the crate diggers, right? They're trying to find something that no one's heard. So I still think bloggers are really cool in that sense, but their audience has dwindled quite a lot, right? So they're influential in that sense, but if you get picked up by a blog, don't expect to get tens of thousands of views directly from that blog. What you're sort of hoping is maybe there'll be some spillover, maybe someone from like UMG reads this blog, they really like it, they tell their friends about it, someone signs you. Or at the very least, blogs actually write about your song, right? I mean, a playlist just chucks your song in there, right? And these playlisters, a lot of them are trying to curate a really good flow, but at the end of the day, they're not saying anything about your song. So blogs, again, are really cool because even if they don't have anyone really reading them, it's someone writing about your music, and you can also turn around and use those quotes for your own promo. So you can put that on your Instagram, on your Facebook, take little snippets out of it. Heck, I've even seen some clever artists who take all of the decline feedback they get on Submit Hub, and they use that as their promo. Because sometimes like the one or two sentences you get for your decline feedback actually contains some good positivity in it.
I experienced that. For sure. Like they'll just say, "Hey, I really enjoyed that." They'll put a really beautiful, like, I love the piano over this great drum track. It sounded really good, but we do lo-fi hip hop jazz, and it wasn't really our thing. But thumbs up, and that's a great quote.
Yeah, take that first chunk of it, and you're trying to build your own brand out there and speak to your fans. So if you can take that first quote, put it up there, and it's sort of like a social verification in a way. Like, look what someone said about my song, and
yeah,
no one cares that you didn't actually get the blog post out of it or that they declined. They don't know that, and the blog is actually also probably stoked that you like shared their words as if it was credible. So I think it's a win-win, and it's a clever strategy because it helps you turn negative feedback into something positive. Because anyone who's used Submit Hub has dealt with tons of it, right? So you can still build something from that, and I think it really helps with a broader promo approach. So
awesome. And
Yeah.
I'll let you guys know, for whoever's watching. I personally put one song up floating on air. A few weeks on Submit Hub. I think about 2 weeks ago I submitted it. I submitted it to 14 different curators. There are probably more, but I did a lot of research and time that I put into it, so I was limited on time. But I did 14. 10 of them declined me. 9 of those 10 gave me feedback, and then one person declined and did give me feedback, and Submit Hub gave me back my credits. If they don't give you feedback, you get your credits back. But 4 curators put me on their Spotify playlist. One did a review. A few of them put me on YouTube. I got thousands of listens. I got thousands of people listening on YouTube, people commenting. I mean, but I wanted to say that I thought all the feedback was on point. I mean, I thanked all of them, but it was
encouraging
on point.
to hear.
They had very good feedback, and they were right with whatever they said. But enough about me and you. Let's move on to your website. So I do have questions about from people. Sean told me to tell you guys to ask questions. So even if they're talking about interesting stuff, you can ask. This live is for us to ask. So there you go. But I do have some questions that people sent me in advance.
Okay, yeah.
So let's see. This is an interesting one. So first of all, what are the qualifications to become a curator?
Oh man. First and foremost, we're looking for someone who genuinely cares about music. It's a bit of a harder thing to tell, but look, we get about 50 applications per day of people wanting to join Submit Hub as curators, and we probably let 5 to 10 of them through. On some of them, it's really obvious that they're sort of going into it with the mentality of, whoa, I can make money by sharing music. And so they're missing that first step of having some sort of foundation, a passion for music, actually liking it, right? So that's really important to us, especially when we're looking at blogs and YouTube channels and those types of curators. Obviously, we're looking at how many engaged followers they have. So we're not just looking at the number of followers, right? Because anyone can go out and buy followers, and it can be very misleading. But we're looking for how engaged those listeners are. We've got a whole bunch of fancy stuff that we're doing around Spotify to try and extrapolate what the listeners amount is on a playlist. So, you know, you might have 100,000 followers, but only 30 people listen per month. Probably not a strong signal. Or rather, it is a strong signal that we shouldn't let you on. So we're looking for engaged audience. We're looking for people who actually put time into curating their content. It doesn't look like they're just filling it with, you know, top 50 songs. I'll give you an example of one of my favorite playlisters is a guy from Sweden who runs a playlist called Thai Funk. And, you know, when I first saw that title, I was like, wow, what the hell is Thai Funk? That's interesting. And it's, to date, it's the only playlist I follow on Spotify because it's just this amazing collection of stuff that you would play at a barbecue. Just like background chill.
That's awesome.
What's that one band? Krongbin? I don't even know how to pronounce it. Krong. Anyway, it's just this chill, laid back vibe. So I guess when we're looking at playlisters who might want to join Submit Hub, we are looking for people who have something unique and are actually really curating that. And it's not always the case, right? I mean, occasionally we do get people who have a much more commercial mainstream focus and they're drawing a lot of listeners either through clever search targeting or advertising campaigns that they're running. And I mean, there's still a spot for that, right? Influencers is a new one that we've got. And this is kind of in a space that we're experimenting with. I think we've got
specifically, you're talking about Instagram influencers.
Instagram influencers, not TikTok, although many of these guys do have TikTok. We started signing them up at the beginning of this year, and we've got 134 of them on Submit Hub right now. So there are two things sort of driving the logic behind the Instagram influencers. The main one is that Facebook monetizes music stickers on Instagram. So I don't know if you know that, but if you use one of those music stickers when you're doing a story,
yeah,
and it gets 1,000 views, that artist gets paid.
Is 1,000 the cutoff?
No, I look, it's one of these things where they're not very transparent. You don't actually know what it is, and you'd have to work with your distributor to find out what those rates are. Not every distributor is plugged into the system yet, but I know a lot of the main ones like DistroKid and all of that are. But
yeah, my stuff is on there through DistroKid.
Yeah, and so I highly doubt that it pays as well as Spotify. Spotify actually pays pretty well, in my opinion. But it's got to pay more than YouTube because YouTube's like the bottom of the barrel as far as payments. So part of the logic with getting shared by these influencers is that you can actually make your money back. That's one thing. The other one is that they are a broader audience. A lot of these guys come from different backgrounds. So with music blogs and playlisters and YouTube channels, these guys are all in the music industry and all of their followers are passionate about music. But with the influencers, you get a lot of different backgrounds. We've got some people who are like bikers, horse jockeys. We had a witch sign up yesterday. A witch. And so, yeah. And so for me, I think it's kind of, it's an area that we're still working to refine. And we really think that there can be some good value there for an artist because you're exposing your music to a much broader audience, right? The big question is how engaged those audiences actually are and what Facebook's actually paying. So this is why I say it's a bit of an experiment, but I think it's evolving over time. So with influencers, you know, there's less about your passion for music as a background and more about the engagement of your audience and whether they seem like they would be the type who could be influenced by you to like someone else's music. So broadly speaking, those are what we look for.
What you just said, and someone pointed out, they disagreed that Spotify doesn't pay well in their opinion. I just looked it up. Spotify pays per million streams $6,000 to $8,000.
That's pretty darn good. I don't know if that's reflective of what
in the
most
streaming
artists
world.
get.
You consider that good? That's from your experience. Like
that's epic. Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, that's so good. From what I've heard, the numbers are typically more around $4 per 1,000. So that's $4,000 for 1 million streams. But if you break that down into internet advertising rates, it's called CPM, cost per 1,000. And in the heyday of Indie Shuffle, when Spin signed this deal, they were basically selling ads on our website for $6 to $10 per 1,000. Today, Indie Shuffle, we're lucky if we get 25 cents for 1,000 ads, right? And so the fact that Spotify is still paying $4 for 1,000 actually means that they're one of the best monetized mediums for online anything in terms of payouts. And you know, $4,000 for a million streams might sound like it's not much. And there've never been more artists getting more than 1 million streams per month than there are now. On the flip side, there've also never been more artists not getting 1 million streams. But I think there's it's genuinely possible for someone to earn a living off of their streams. I've got a couple of friends here in South Africa who are making $3,000 or $4,000 a month. They've got about 200,000 listeners on Spotify.
On Spotify.
And that revenue stream, right? That's just from Spotify. So they're also getting some revenue from Apple, probably not much from YouTube, etc. But that allows them to focus on their craft, which is making music. So personally, from the blogger side, I think Spotify is one of the best paying internet mediums because their Tidal pays more, Apple pays more, but Tidal and Apple don't get you as many streams as Spotify. Spotify is still the sort of the leading platform for indie type of music, hip hop, electronic, and rock, that type of stuff.
Awesome.
So,
cool. Let's move on to some. Let's see. Someone asked, "Do you still use Submit Hub yourself?" I'm assuming they're talking to me. Yes, I'm actually going to put up my next single soon and start sending it off, and hopefully get some submissions approved. How do you get into Spotify playlist? I mean, well, do you want to take this one?
yeah. Sorry, that's the coronavirus. How do I get? Okay, so there are 3 types of playlists on Spotify, right? The first one are the editorial playlists, and these are the holy grail. This is your rap caviar. These are the ones that have millions of followers, and they're really what Spotify pushes on their platform. So for the average user browsing around Spotify, this is what Spotify puts in front of their face. If you get into one of these editorial playlists, it's a good thing, right? Some of them are huge, some of them are a bit smaller, but generally it's a really good thing. That said, they're quite difficult to get into. Now, Spotify does have a way to submit directly to these editors, and you should definitely try to take advantage of it. But there are other ways to get in, right? And to help bolster. So the other 2 types of playlists are the sort of automatic magical ones that they create based on a user's listening behavior. So these are algorithmic recommendations that are kind of saying, hey, you like this, so you probably like this and this and this, right? So those are the second type of playlist. And then the third one are independently curated playlists, which used to be really hot on Spotify. In fact, in 2015 and 2016, Spotify didn't have many of their own editorial playlists, and they put a lot of effort into highlighting independent curators because they were sort of thinking at the time that they would, well, I'm assuming this, but I think they were sort of going to crowdsource that data, and they thought, you know, if we can just get the public to make all these playlists for us, that's fantastic, right? That's sort of a business's dream. Just get the people to do it for you.
Yeah.
And so they built up a lot of these playlists, and they actually let them be discovered. And some of these guys picked up hundreds of thousands of followers in a couple months. So that's actually an interesting one, because often you'll see some of these playlists floating around today. There's still quite a few of them on Submit Hub who have hundreds of thousands of followers, but not many listeners. And the reason is because Spotify, a lot of those followers are really old. They got pumped up back in the day, and they're not around anymore. I think you'll probably see the same thing on Facebook these days when you visit most brands' Facebook pages. I'll give you my own as an example, Indie Shuffle, right? We have 120,000 followers on there. We're growing by 1,000 followers per year, maybe, because back in the day, Facebook used to like pump followers into, you know, you could buy followers for your Facebook page through their advertising for nothing, and you got this epic reach, and that was it. And then, you know, Facebook cut it all off, and they said, okay, now you have to promote your posts. So it's a similar thing that happened on Spotify, where they pumped up all these playlists, and then they decided, nah, you know what? We're going to do this in-house, because when we get more control over what goes up on these playlists, and that control is a quality control, but also it's keeping a lot of their relationships happy with major labels and that type of stuff. So 3 types of playlists. Why do you want to go for independent playlists? Well, there's a lot of sort of snippets floating out there about how the algorithmic playlists work. And no one knows. Spotify hasn't published that formula, but there's a lot of good guesses. If your song gets a lot of saves or likes, it's a strong signal to their algorithm that people are listening. If your song gets put in a bunch of playlists, again, a strong signal that people are enjoying your song. If your song gets listened to a lot through the whole way, like people listen the whole way, they don't skip it, they don't do that, another strong signal. And so the idea, excuse me, with independent playlists is that they can help boost your odds of getting into the algorithmic playlists and ultimately get noticed for the editorial playlists. So that's the logic of why people would submit to an independent playlister. And if you follow that logic, some people might even argue that it doesn't matter how small the playlist is or how few listeners they're getting. What you're really looking for is sort of a numbers game of engagement and just absolute number of playlists. Like if you get your song in 50 playlists in the first week of it coming out, hopefully that's going to send a signal. But you got to be careful because there's a lot of people selling fake playlists, an incredible amount, right? It's a blight. I think that's the right word on Spotify. They're actually taking away data from us to make it even harder to tell who's real and who's fake. And it's a big problem because if you go on there's a website called Fiverr. I don't know if you've heard of it, but basically it's like $5 tasks, right? People make you a logo or a poster, or they'll put you in a bunch of Spotify playlists.
Sometimes
and that's a huge red flag.
I was going to say, sometimes there are people on Fiverr Pro that can record guitars for you and, stuff like that. Sometimes.
Hey. Right. And no, anyway. I mean, there's really high quality stuff on there. I've seen people do translation services, for example. It's a massive website with a huge breadth of stuff. But in the music category, they've got a lot of people who promise to get you promo, put you in playlists, do all of that stuff. And those are huge red flags because number one, it's against Spotify's term to pay for placement in a playlist. So you can't tell someone like, here's $5, I'm in your playlist now. And the other thing is that these playlists tend to all be fake, right? If you see someone, excuse me, who's got a playlist and it says they got 50,000 followers and the name is Fresh Finds, like red flag, right? How did you get 50,000 followers on a playlist that's got a really generic title and doesn't show up? One of the first checks you can always do actually with these playlists is just go search for the playlist on Spotify. So if the playlist is like lo-fi chill beats, right? Just go search for, think about what would someone search for when they want to listen to this music? Probably lo-fi chill beats, right? So go, well, I often go for like a shorter keyword, right? So I would just go search lo-fi beats and see do they show up in the top 3 playlists that Spotify recommends. If they don't, oh gee whiz, sorry everyone. Then I'm telling you, I got it. Then if they don't show up, it's a bit of a red flag that maybe something sketchy is going on. That's all.
Gotcha. Wow. We've got a bunch of questions. Let's hit them.
Cool.
Let's see. So does Submit Hub have rock, Spanish, Latin American, and Spain playlist and influencers? I believe so, but
yeah. So there's a lot of playlists. There's just a lot of outlets on here. So I'll give you some quick tips. If you don't even need an account, you can see all of this information. That's one of the things we put a lot of effort into is giving you as much information as we can so that you can decide who to send to. Not everyone's good, right? So if you want to look for Latin focus on rock, you're going to go to submithub.com/blogs. It's going to show you the list of all 1,200 people. You're going to go, holy shit, how do I sift through this? And on the left-hand side, if you're on desktop or if you're on mobile, there's a little filters thing you can click to show the filters. There's 2 areas you can look here. You can look at the genres and you can look at the countries, right? Because we're looking at Latin America and Spanish type of stuff. So one of the first things you could do is actually filter by country. So you can come down in the filters. There's a section called location. It says choose a country, and you can go into that and say, okay, well, just show me the people from Spain, Mexico, or a whole bunch of Latin American countries, whatever it is. That's a good first step to just narrow it down to people who are from the same area as you, and more importantly, probably speak Spanish. Si puedes entender lo que estás diciendo, luego es más fácil para enjoy it. Yeah. So So the second place you can look is in the genres, right? And so if you're saying you're doing rock, then I go into the genres and I can see that we've actually got Latin rock as a genre. So you can pop right into that, choose Latin rock as your genre, and boom, there you go. Let me see how many we got. So if I'm just doing Latin rock, I think it's 27 because I think I only added this genre 3 days ago. Yeah, I think so. Something like that. But there's at least 27 curators who like that specifically.
I think actually one of my songs, one of the curators that approved me was, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Black Raven, and I believe they're from South or Central America. If I'm not mistaken.
There's a lot of them on here. We're seeing actually the biggest proportion of our new curator signups are coming from Latin America. So I think what's happened is, Submit Hub's been around for 4 years, and we've really tapped a lot of the English-speaking Western world. And now what's happening is that Submit Hub's sort of spreading into South America, which has had this huge boom in music streaming and music listening and all these cool sounds coming out of there. And they've got a lot of young people who are hip to the internet, and these are who the curators are, right? So, I mean, genres like jazz and neoclassical are a bit underrepresented because they tend to have an older demographic, and those guys don't blog, right? They don't influence, they don't stream, they don't do that stuff. But Latin America has this huge influx of young people who are starting YouTube channels, Spotify playlists, influencing all that stuff. And so we're seeing a ton of these guys signing up to Submit Hub. So that's a really long answer to yes. yeah, there's Latin Americans on here. So yeah.
Awesome. Let's see. Aside from music, well, that's a complex question. But they ask, aside from music, what have the both of you found to be the best ways to maintain audience engagement?
Well, I mean,
yeah, exactly. That's a complicated. I'll tell you, that's a complicated answer. Maybe at the end we'll get to it. Audience engagement, to keep it simple on my end, I connect with the fans, whether it's in person or on here. On my end, audience engagement, once stuff is out there, if someone reaches out to me, if they hear that I'm from Smash Mouth, they're into it, they reach out to me in any way possible, I connect with everyone. If they heard my music and they connect with me, I talk to everyone. So that's how I
would give a similar answer, and I'm coming from a different space, right? But on Submit Hub, I think one of the reasons we've done well is because it's so open and easy to communicate. So there's the chat rooms on Submit Hub. Anyone can message me. You messaged me. You asked me. The worst question anyone can ever ask me is, hey, can you listen to my song and tell me what genre it is? And instead of telling you to get lost, I did it, right? And so I think that sort of answers
it was your idea. Yeah. You said to me as I was writing to you.
Oh, because shit, did I?
I reached out to Jason and I was like, hey, man, how do I find people that just want instrumental? Because I'm finding a lot of people that want vocals, vocal tracks, full songs. And I have instrumentals. And he was kind enough to give me the breakdown. It's on my video on YouTube. You can check it out. So we won't get into that. But in the rest of the email, I was like, interesting. Well, I'm wondering, can you listen to this? And before I even pressed enter, you sent me a message saying, I don't usually do this, and he had no idea who I play with or anything. I'm just another dude hitting him up. He was just like, I've got a few minutes. I don't usually do this, but if you want to send it to me, I'll take a listen. And sure enough, you did, and very helpful. So
I think that answers the question of what you do to keep your fans engaged, is engage with them.
And Jason, it's so easy. First of all, I've noticed just by doing the research on you and stuff, you're so open. If any of you actually get on Submit Hub and have any problems with it or any ideas of how he could do it better, he is all about it. Like, he takes the feedback and
I'll listen. I'll engage. I might not agree.
You may not agree, but you'll definitely take the feedback and listen to it. And very active. So awesome. Let's see here. Where's the red telly? It's there. How do you get 1 million streams? That's a very complicated question. I think very simply, you have to have great music that gets to a bunch of different playlists and stuff. As an artist, you have to. I've seen it with my friend who had hundreds of thousands of streams on YouTube and on Spotify, and it's just through your website. I mean, he had the right song. He used the filters well. He went for the right people, the right curators, and got a lot of no's. He told me, get ready for that. But he also got a lot of yeses, and he's definitely got over 1 million views on YouTube, and he's, I don't know what it is now, but he had 10,000 monthly listeners at the time on Spotify.
Which is good.
Do you want to add anything to that?
I mean, that still pays well.
Yeah.
Okay, so my first reaction when someone asks that is, if you're asking that question, you're probably not going to get it. There's no magic trick to getting 1 million views, right? Like if anyone actually knew the answer to that, they wouldn't be telling you. They would just be out there getting millions of streams for themselves, right? And I think that's because there is no magic answer to it. It's so different based on genre, timing, luck, etc. The foundation of it all has to be a really, really good. Hey, Mark Levere Music is the one who said it was him.
Yes, Mark
Cool.
Claver.
You should send me an email. I would love to hear that story. So it really boils down to the song, and I think one like daunting thing to consider is that on Submit Hub, the average approval rate is 11 or 12% with premium credits, which means that close to 90% of the time it's going to be a no. And for you to really stand out, you have to make music that's better than 95% of what everyone else is sending in. And that's when it's crazy. Like you just have to stop and go, am I better than 95% of the other people in this genre? And the answer is 95% of the time, no.
And
so,
let me comment real quick.
Yeah.
Another tool that you have on your website is recent shares. If you go to any of these curators, I think that's the button, and you look at the curator and you go to the right of the screen. I use this so much. You go to recent shares. If these people look like they would be great for your music, go to recent shares and see what your competition is. You might you might think you're an 8 out of 10, and you might hear stuff there that is just blowing you out of the water, and you realize, oh, I'm actually at best my mixes and masters of 5s. I may want to work on that before I submit it, because this stuff is amazing. I found some amazing music through your site. Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it can go both ways. There's some curators on there that share some questionable stuff. And I would say, in general, steer clear of anyone who's got an approval percentage that's higher than 20%, because they're starting to flood their audience and they're not being that picky. But once you head into those individuals who have like a 3, 4, 5, 6% approval rate, it's super low, but it also means that they're being really picky. And so if you do click on the recent shares, you'll probably hear some high quality stuff there. And if you don't, maybe they've just got weird taste in music. But the other tool I thought you were going to mention was Hot or Not, which is like just a little side feature I've been playing with on Submit Hub, and I made some of the changes you brought up last night. But the idea with Hot or Not, for people who don't know, is it's kind of like while you're waiting for the blogs to shit all over your music, you can go and have other artists shit all over your music. No, I'm kidding. Hot or Not is actually really positive. The majority of votes are actually upvotes, but the idea is a song comes up, you listen to it, and you say it's hot or not, and that's it. And you rate 10 songs, and once you've done that, then your song can be rated. So it's a really cool way for you to expose yourself to what all of the other artists using Submit Hub are creating, and you'll often find that the music you're listening to there just makes you go, fuck, all right, some of these guys are really good, right?
Yeah.
And what else is cool about Hot or Not is it's way more indie artist focused, right? So another thing to keep in mind is that Submit Hub is heavily used by all of the major labels at this point. So UMG, Sony, Warner are pumping all their acts through Submit Hub for their like. So instead of hiring a publicist, which is what they used to do to contact the blogs, they're just pumping it into Submit Hub. And so people need to keep that in mind, that you're not just competing against the other artists in Hot or Not, you're actually competing against, the Chainsmokers are on here, right? You're competing against the Chainsmokers. And so it's Submit Hub's like the cat's out of the bag at this point, and I think that's why it's so hard and difficult and competitive, but it can still be really helpful in narrowing in on your niche, which is where, coming back to this, you want to hit 1 million views, you're probably not going to hit it from like a broad mass appeal. You're just going to have to work your niche. If you're making instrumental hip hop and sort of study beats, which is kind of the direction I remember you were heading on your music, there are so many people listening to that style of music right now. You just need to hammer in on that niche, focus it, and then explode within that. Yeah. So it can help with that.
Yeah. You know what? You actually covered a question that came up. What can you suggest for people who are using the free service? You mentioned blogs and labels. That tab is, you don't have to have any credits. You don't have to buy anything in order to do the research on all these blogs. You can listen to other people's music, everything you just said. So many ways for artists to use this incredible tool completely free. But if you want to use it and try to get your music out there, there's also that.
Someone's asking if I'm concerned about the major labels being too dominant. I don't want to be misleading with that statement. They're not dominant. By far, the majority of songs are coming from independent small artists on Submit Hub. And what Submit Hub's actually done is leveled the playing field in many ways, because prior to this, if you go back to when Indie Shuffle was ignoring 300 emails a day, the only way for an act to really get noticed and blogged by us was either by hiring a publicist who had a better connection to us, or they were a major label band we were paying attention to. And so Submit Hub's actually done the exact opposite in that it's completely leveled the playing field. So your song is going to show up right next to someone from UMG. And it's not even going to tell the blogger, like, this one's from UMG and this one's from an artist who's releasing their first song. That's not even a thing. They're still just basing it on the song. So I think the reason I'm bringing that up is more on the quality standpoint, and the fact when I say to really stand out here, you have to be better than 90% of the other artists in your niche. And I guess that's where I'm bringing up the major labels, is like part of that 90% is major label artists. So
from my experience, though, what you said, absolutely. I found that 9 out of 10 artists that I looked up, because you can go to people's profile if it's not private and look up that they have 100,000 followers on Instagram because they're major, or they have 265. 9 out of 10 were completely indie.
Yeah, and that's generally the makeup of it. It's democratized music in a way. It's actually made it a lot harder for major labels to find an act and really push it and blow it up. 5 years ago, they could get that circle jerk of bloggers to all cover the same act, and they can't do that anymore because the bloggers are just so, like, they're not looking at their emails anymore. They're just in, and when I use the word bloggers, I mean like playlisters, bloggers, YouTube, whatever. They're in their feed. They're not looking up from that. They're not paying attention to publicists anymore. They're just, boom, what's there?
Right, because it's right there for them. Real quick, can you cover, someone asked, why standard versus premium credits? Just cover real quick, there's standard credits and premium credits. By the way, Jason will be giving you guys some, listeners, some free premium credits to use on his website with a code that we'll talk about in about 15 minutes, because this thing ends in an hour. So we've basically got another 17 minutes to go.
I got to think
so
about
standard
that code
versus
while
premium credits.
We do that. So the question was, what's the difference between standard and premium credits?
Yep.
Standard credits are completely free. They come with no guarantees. So when you send your music to a curator, they don't even have to listen or respond, right? If they don't do that, it's going to reflect badly on their profile and it's not going to look good. So there is incentive for them to respond. And Submit Hub will tell you who responds and who doesn't. So as you're going through with your free credits and you're going, oh shit, should I send to Indie Shuffle or not? It's going to tell you Indie Shuffle responds to 100% of their free ones, or it will tell you someone else only responds to half of them. So the idea is to set expectations there. You get 2 free credits every 4 hours, but you got to use them to get more. So you never have more than 2. Premium credits, on the other hand, cost money because they're premium, but they're basically that carrot that gets dangled in front of the blogger's face. Again, blogger being any sort of curator. And you're saying, hey, if you listen to this song for at least 20 seconds, respond within 48 hours, and if you don't like it, that's fine, but tell me why. If you do all of that, I'm going to give you this carrot, right? Or this premium credit. And so premium credits don't have a limit on them. It's however many you buy, They cost anywhere from $1.20 each down to 60 cents each. Right now there's a 19% coupon called COVID-19 on SubmitHub, which will take 19% off any package you purchase.
Which I use, by the way, and it's very cool of you guys to do that because of this whole scenario. Really cool.
Man, it has led to the highest usage SubmitHub's ever seen, which I think is good timing because our curators have never been more active. They're all stuck at home with nothing to do except listen to music. So it's great that there's a huge supply of stuff coming in for them. So with premium credits, you get these guarantees. They're going to respond within 48 hours. They'll listen for at least 20 seconds. And if they don't like your song, they'll explain why. And so kind of the point of the feedback is to demonstrate that they genuinely listened to your song and gave it a chance, and to give you insight into why it's not a good fit. Because the people on SubmitHub are all different, unique snowflakes, the curators, you're going to get widely different feedback, right? So some people are going to write you epic, on point, really helpful feedback, and others are just going to spit out this garbage that leaves you kind of scratching your head and wondering if it was copy pasted or not, and just it's not. They can't copy paste. But some people are better than others. Their notes on SubmitHub are going to say it. It tells you like this person writes good feedback or this person doesn't write good feedback. And so when you collectively look at all that feedback, say you send it to 50 curators and you get this feedback, you might be able to extract some trends. So you're going to get things on all sides of the spectrum. Someone will say they love the vocals and someone will say they hate the vocals. But if 15 people say they struggled with the vocals and only one person said they liked the vocals, maybe there's something to look into there. So it's possible to extract trends from it. And as we pointed out at the beginning of this conversation, you can also turn around and use that feedback to kind of help your promo.
Right. Okay, let's move on. I think you covered this already, but how does SubmitHub prevent curators from making a blog, buying thousands of followers on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc., and giving themselves up to SubmitHub and scamming musicians? Scamming musicians, you sort of answered this. You said that you do a lot of research into it, but it is something that becomes harder and harder because of X, Y, and Z. But I will say that when I spoke to on Reddit, when I spoke to people, and on Discord with the indie music feedback group that I'm part of, shout out to IMF, and they all mentioned, you put out they get a lot of scammy emails, and I was like, guys, all I can tell you is this thing is legit. It is an amazing resource. That's all I can tell you. But do you have anything to add on that?
We screen everyone who joins really heavily, and in the name of transparency, which is how this whole thing operates, I can't promise you that all 1,200 on here are angels, right? There are definitely gonna be some people on here who are trying to pull the wool over our eyes. So we've got a lot of tests and checks and things we look for when people apply to make sure that they are genuine, have a good following, and are going to actually look for and share good music. But we've definitely been scammed before. Very early on in SubmitHub's day, I had someone who joined as Vice Canada, and I was like, oh, this is dope. And we obviously did our research, like, is Vice actually applying to join SubmitHub as a curator? We looked it up. This girl's name is Kristen. We found her Twitter profile, asked her to send us a message, confirm it's her, everything. It was all legit. And we're like, great. And it turns out it wasn't. This person was actually doing like an elaborate, identity theft.
Oh, wow.
And they had stolen some other girls' data, and they were doing all sorts of stuff. They weren't just doing SubmitHub. They were selling fake Coachella tickets, and they were using this profile for like legitimacy. So at the end of the day, we are still susceptible to being tricked, but we try really hard not to. And we're also constantly sort of policing that. So even once they're on SubmitHub, someone could go and buy a bunch of fake followers, right? And then join. If they're a blog, that's not going to work because we're looking for history. You need to have at least 6 months to a year of written history. If you're a Spotify playlist and you suddenly show up with 10,000 followers, again, looks kind of sketchy. We do have ways to look at how fast you've grown, that type of stuff. So it's not easy to fake us, but if someone does fake us and manage to get on, they still have to actually share content, right? Otherwise, It's just going to be visible to you that holy shit, these guys aren't doing anything. And if you go on SubmitHub, you can see everyone's approval rate, and you will actually see a lot of guys, not a lot, but you'll see probably 30 or 40 out of the 1,200 who have an approval rate below 1%. And I think it's one of the most common things I get is people telling me to kick them off. Like, why are they on SubmitHub? You should kick them off. They're not here to find music. The answer with those guys almost all the time is that they're YouTube channels and they're getting 100 submissions a day, but they only upload one song every 2 days.
Okay.
That tends to be the answer there. So long story short, can we tell if they're real or not? We try. We've been fooled before. We're pretty confident with the people who are on there. We're constantly trying to police it. And at the end of the day, the information is there for you to be able to make a judgment about whether they're worth sending to or not.
Right. I think this is more of the same. Let me just read it because I was listening to you. But is there a process to reevaluate the bloggers or curators who got in after a certain amount of time? I mean, guys, really, when it comes to the spammy things, I can tell you this. From my experience, it's worked for me. From my experience, it's worked for my friend Mark, who introduced me to SubmitHub. As Jason just said, spammers and scammers sometimes get in here, but I gotta say, you see so much. It's not like you see, hey, submit to this curator. You see so much information. Just go on there and check it out. There is so much information that Jason and his team put up on there. They'll tell you if the listen to follow ratio, how it is, if the feedback ratio. They give you so much information on a blog that you can decide for yourself if this is a scam. If it is, don't apply for it.
If you think it is, tell me.
Yeah.
If you think it is, tell me. As I said, we got a very open feedback loop, and people report issues. In fact, we've got a lot of different ways for people to report issues as well, and we're constantly monitoring all of those. So when you review people's feedback, when you at the end of being shared, so once someone has approved your song and shared it, we send out a survey to ask you what your experience was like. Were you happy with the content? Was it valuable to you? Was it not valuable? And we're actually looking at all of this. My partner Dylan is like epically on top of policing SubmitHub and the people who are already on there, and we're kicking people off. A few people a week get kicked off for all sorts of things. For example, if we find someone who is charging for playlist placement, not even on SubmitHub, just like out there, like on Instagram, they were willing. Someone messaged them on Instagram and they said, "Sure, it's $10. I'll put you in." We're gonna kick them off SubmitHub. And they'll be like, "Oh, but I wasn't doing it on SubmitHub. I was being honest on there." And it's like, yeah, but you're not being an honest curator in general, and we don't want that. So we spend a lot of time policing, and we have a new, possibly 2 full-time employees. We're currently 3 people, but we're bringing on 2 new people over the course of the next month, and a lot of that focus is going to be on policing and keeping up with the 1,200 and probably pretty soon 1,500 and then 2,000 curators who are on here. So,
wow, that's good to know. I just want to remind, we're going to go through a few more, and we've got about 5-6 minutes. There's so many questions. I just want to remind everyone, you know what? It's a good time we'll do the password. I just want to remind everyone that I have a YouTube up there about a review of mine that I just did. I am not affiliated to Jason in any kind of way, not sponsored in any way. This was just my review of being on his website and what I gained from it, and kind of walks you through it. So feel free to check it out on my YouTube. We're going to give away some premium credits to whoever is watching and whoever cares about this stuff, and whoever wants to use it. So free credits. What would they have to do?
All right, so I'm trying to think of a password here.
Well, you just use my name,
right?
Sean. My handle, Sean H Music. How does that sound?
Your Instagram handle. Yeah, that's great. How about that? That's good. So if anyone emails me, jason@submithub.com, and they mention that they were tuned into this, and they give the secret password, which is Sean's. Oh, look at someone talk about Levenstein distancing. Woo! We'll get to that in a second.
And someone
email
mentions
me,
my handle.
jason@submithub.com with your handle. That's the secret password. If you don't mention that, you're not getting any credits. So, yeah.
How many credits are we talking about?
I'm going to give you 3.
Okay, that's great. By the way,
That's like
three
$3.
means you could either submit to. Oh, we didn't mention this, so it's on the video. You get 1, 2, or 3 credits. Some curators take 1 credit, some curators take 2, some curators take 3. So you could potentially submit to 3 different people for free.
Well, yeah, potentially. Another use of this is you could go use the premium hot or not feature, which I know you sort of played around with, but
I did.
credits go a lot further there. 6 credits get you 50 votes, and I think 3 credits get you something like 20 votes. And that's, you can sort of choose what people are going to give you feedback on. So you can ask, like, rate me on my vocals, my cover art, and my production. So you could use them there as well. Alternatively, if you're still looking for free credits, and Grisha wants me to repeat the password is Sean H Music. It's Sean's Instagram handle.
Yes.
The alternative is to use Hot or Not. If you write feedback for other artists, you can I'll give you free credits out of my own pocket. It's sort of like a little gamification. It makes it interesting. But what's really cool about it, not just that you earn free credits, but if you put your own music through the Hot or Not system, you're probably going to get a lot of feedback too from other artists.
I did. And something worth mentioning is one thing you can do when I use 6 credits to get my thing rated, my song rated. One of the options that you have as an artist doing that is you can say, here's what I want to, after someone listens, you have to listen for a specific amount in order to give the feedback, in order for it to count. But you can ask 3 questions. So you can make up the questions, or you can use questions like, and it's a scale from 1 to 5. What did you think of the music? I thought it was a 3. On a scale from this to the... One of the questions that I made was, would you go check out other music by this artist? I thought that was very interesting. For me, that was interesting. And yeah, I got some great feedback from that. Just getting to some more here.
Cool. We got 3 minutes left, and I gotta hop on to... I've actually got another podcast right after this.
Awesome.
I don't know why I'm doing this to myself. Yeah.
How important would you say the art for a track album is to a curator? Do they even see the art?
So yeah, all the emphasis on a Submit Hub curator side is placed on the song, and the artwork centers. It's front and center in that, but I would say it's not that important. There are definitely, with 1,200 curators, you can't make generalizations. For some of them, artwork is important. But by and large, and I'll speak for myself here, I don't really care what the artwork looks like unless it's something offensive.
Right.
For me, music is primarily about my eardrums. And I don't watch many music videos. And I think a lot of the curators on here are on a similar boat. We listen. And so... artwork is secondary. It helps. It can add something, add context, add something to it. But at the end of the day, music's what we care about.
I remember bloggers strongly preferring unreleased music. They could premiere on their sites. Is this the same for curators?
So it applies less so with blogs now as well. It's definitely a helpful thing, right? You offer a premiere, someone's going to take it. It's giving them some sort of incentive to approve it. With playlisters and whatnot, we don't even allow them to do premieres on Submit Hub because it doesn't make sense for a playlister to premiere your song. And I think, look, what happens is if you released an unreleased song through Submit Hub, it's going to put the date on there, and it's going to automatically filter all of the curators out based on the date that you've chosen. So you're automatically going to only be sending to people who actually care to receive it at that time. For playlisters, I think most of them prefer to receive a song on release day or shortly thereafter, because then you've got the Spotify link available. And a lot of these guys like to approve and share, right? Whereas a blog will approve your song and they'll get to it in a week or 2, right? They got a queue of other songs, and every song requires a lot more effort. You got to write a blog post, and for a playlist, it's a bit easier. Like, just put my song in here, put it here.
25 seconds. Here we go. Check out the video on YouTube. We have 20 seconds remaining. Email Jason. Tell us your email again.
Jason@submithub.com, or you can find me in the chat rooms too. That's also good. 2 things in that email. I need Sean's Instagram handle, and I need your username. Don't email me if you don't have a user account, because then we're just going to have to email more. I'm going to ask you what your username is, and then back and forth. You're creating more work.
And that's all you have. Instagram cut us off. So don't forget to like and subscribe, and please comment and let me know if there's anything else that you'd like to know about SubmitHub or anything else that you'd like me to talk about in the future. Thank you.